friend, don't forget to subscribe to us. The most interesting highlights and other cool information. Videos. Enjoy watching.
In the world of mixed martial arts, there are names that inspire awe and reverence among all fans of this brutal sport. One such name is Fedor Emelianenko, nicknamed the Last Emperor of MMA. A legendary man whose career has spanned over 2 decades. During this time, he has crushed hundreds of opponents, taking away their will to win with his iron fist and unparalleled combat sambo technique. Emelianenko is the undefeated 4-time Pride FC champion, 2-time Rings champion, 3-time WAMA champion. His coronation as the last emperor was predetermined. Fedor's fighting style is deadly and unpredictable. His agility and unorthodox boxing technique confound even the most experienced opponents. Jabs and straight punches are not his forte. Fedor prefers circular trajectories that are impossible to evade. And his whipping kicks have broken the ribs and jaws of many a fighter. Strength, technique, and unshakable champion spirit, this is what made Fedor Emelianenko the emperor of MMA. He went down in history as one of the greatest mixed martial artists, having given the sport his all without reservation. Why was Fedor Emelianenko dubbed the last emperor? The answer lies in the golden era of his career, the Japanese Pride Fighting Championships organization. In those times, Pride was the unofficial leader of MMA, a place of pilgrimage for the best fighters on the planet. And in that ring reigned Fedor, the formidable Russian samurai who conquered the hearts of millions of Japanese fans. He was revered, worshipped, and newspapers of that time were emblazoned with headlines, "The Pride Emperor wins again." The cult of Fedor in the land of the rising sun was so great that it was in Japan where he was awarded the regal nickname the Last Emperor. It reflected his domination in the heavyweight division and his status as the top star of the mighty promotion. When Pride met its demise in 2007, Emelianenko's Japanese nickname became firmly entrenched. Media outlets around the world adopted it, for Fedor truly was the last champion of the fallen empire. The greatest, most legendary, almost an emperor himself. Since then, the last emperor became more than just a nickname, but a symbol of an era, a reminder of the times when the fearsome Russian hero Fedor Emelianenko strode into the Pride ring. What is behind the phenomenon of Fedor Emelianenko's popularity? There are several reasons, all inextricably linked to his extraordinary personality. First and foremost, Fedor became an icon of Russian martial arts, an example for countless young fighters. Through his triumphs over the strongest opponents, he elevated Russian MMA to unreachable heights, setting a new benchmark of perfection. Equally important is his trademark fighting style. Emelianenko is the embodiment of technique, tactical genius, and lightning-fast reaction. His strikes, agile as sword thrusts, always found their mark. And his whirlwind grappling technique knocked the spirit out of any opponent. Fedor was a deadly all-rounder. He could win by knockout or perfect submission. However, the main factor was not his combat genius, but Fedor's modesty and professionalism. In an era of hype and showing off, he played the role of a true samurai, a silent master focused on perfecting his craft. Money and fame were merely small bonuses in his relentless pursuit of martial perfection. Ultimately, Emelianenko was the last emperor of a fading era, the last great master of the old school, harmoniously combining traditional styles with the latest MMA trends. Each of his fights blended karate, wrestling, boxing, and other disciplines into a tangled web of deadly combinations. Let's take a closer look at Fedor Emelianenko's technique and training peculiarities. Core style and its formation. Foundation, the bedrock of Fedor Emelianenko's fighting style were the grappling disciplines. From the age of 10, in 1986, he immersed himself in the study of sambo and judo. These harsh Russian styles tempered his body and spirit. After being discharged from the military in 1997, Fedor earned the Master of Sports title in sambo, and 2 months later, in judo as well. A year after that, he had already become an international master of sports in sambo. Imagine the colossal grappling experience this guy had by the age of 24. During his army service in the firefighting troops and tank units, Emelianenko likely did not develop his striking skills much. But who knows how his career would have unfolded had he ended up in special forces or reconnaissance. Perhaps the world would have seen an even more lethal Fedor. Emelianenko seriously honed his stand-up striking only at 23 years old under the guidance of the legendary Alexander Michkov, a master of the Soviet boxing school. This gray-haired mentor had molded 15 boxing and sambo masters over the years. Thanks to his exceptional coordination, according to Michkov, Fedor quickly mastered powerful hand strikes. By blending grappling prowess and a boxer's fists, Emelianenko created a unique whirlwind style that was unmatched in MMA. Technical peculiarities. Fedor's unmatched technique was the result not only of training, but also his indomitable character and fighter's intellect. Before each bout, Emelianenko studied his future opponent down to the smallest details. He analyzed their tactics, strengths and weaknesses, even physiological data, and then surrounded himself with sparring partners of a similar style. For instance, when preparing for the kickboxer Cro Cop, Fedor flew to the Netherlands for training with Thai strikers. In the actual fight, Emelianenko exuded enviable cold-bloodedness. His face remained completely impassive, like a mask. This deprived his opponent of reference points, not allowing them to gauge the effectiveness of their strikes and chosen tactics. At 23 years old, starting his MMA career, Fedor already had 13 years of intensive training under his belt. His strikes, throws and combinations were honed to automaticity. He had a phenomenal sense of distance and spatial control. He could withstand any blows and instantly find solutions in any situation, qualities many young fighters with 1 to 3 years of practice can only envy. Emelianenko's very physiology seemed created for combat. Recall the epic slam of Kevin Randleman's technical, yet devastating. For most fighters, that would have been the end. But Fedor took it like a granite cliff takes a wave and kept moving forward. Even in his later years, catching monstrous body shots from Maldonado, he remained on his feet. Yet the last emperor's tactics were as simple as Fedor himself. Pressure if pressured. Attack relentlessly, disrupt distance, cripple the opponent with powerful combination flurries and sudden searing strikes if given room to maneuver. But let's examine Emelianenko's iconic striking technique and grappling in more detail. Striking technique. Let's examine the starting point of Fedor's deadly striking machine, his trademark fighting stance. At first glance, it is far from the ideals of classical boxing. Emelianenko's hands are lowered, his elbows often flared out to the sides. A posture that seems open and vulnerable. However, let's recall how Fedor moved around the ring. Not with bouncing steps like modern sheker fighters like Conor McGregor, but with short, economical strides characteristic of seasoned heavyweights. Every shift calculated, every breath accounted for. When Alexander Michkov, his boxing coach, tried to put Emelianenko in a classical stance, he could see the target worse and got hit more. But in his usual nonchalantly relaxed pose, Fedor exuded animal-like agility and attentiveness. This stance, breaking established canons, carried an immense message. Fedor did not value form for form's sake. He created his unique style, placing functionality and lethal effectiveness above all other criteria. Striking technique had always been the Achilles heel for grappling-based fighters. But Fedor Emelianenko was the rarest of exceptions to this rule. Despite learning boxing only at 23, the last emperor became a true master of hand-to-hand combat. His fists were as dangerous as his brilliant grappling skills. Though Fedor's favorite weapons were his hands, he used kicks infrequently. Although the former judoka did train in Muay Thai under legendary Dutch kickboxers like Ernesto Hust and Johan Voss. The fight against Mirko Cro Cop was a glaring demonstration of Emelianenko's striking arsenal. Filipovic, the K1 star, predicted an overwhelming victory over the grappler Fedor. Yet they spent most of the bout on the feet. Emelianenko fearlessly engaged in clinches, deftly nullified Cro Cop's low kicks, pressured while landing his own devastating high kicks. Fedor's hand technique was skillful yet unorthodox. He almost never used jabs, preferring to duel at close range. His lead hand constantly pestered the opponent, feinting high then low. Keeping his foe on tenterhooks, Emelianenko calculated the perfect moment for the final lunge or destructive combination flurry. The world saw time and again the last emperor reigns not just on the ground, but also on the feet. His fists are as lethal as his locks and throws. Signature strikes and combinations. In the arsenal of the last emperor were several iconic fight-ending strikes that he repeatedly used to bloodily hammer out victories. Fedor's calling card was his legendary body shots. He didn't throw them straight, but in a lethal arcing motion, whipping his fist around the opponent's guard. In his youth, Emelianenko loved to rain down veritable storms of these destructive body blows. Pinning his victim to the fence or ropes, he methodically battered their defense with flurries until an opening appeared for the fight-ending strike. However, Fedor's overtly looping style sometimes backfired on him. Remember his fight with Kazuyuki Fujita? The last emperor had him cornered and was battering him into the canvas with sledgehammer shots. But in a desperate bid, Fujita cracked the emperor's armor with a pinpoint counter uppercut. Fedor barely stayed on his feet. Or his bout with Fabio Maldonado? After eating 2 staggering body shots early, Emelianenko crashed to the mat. Only his incredible composure and skills saved him from being put to sleep. Fedor's second signature strike was his howitzer overhand right. It felled Brett Rogers, Satoshi Ishii, Pedro Rizzo, and many others. In boxing, such a looping punch is considered insane roulette, but Emelianenko had perfected it. He knew the soul moment when it could land cleanly. The last emperor had one more potent trump card, his trademark ground and pound. Once in a dominating position, he relentlessly battered his downed foe with a hailstorm of strikes. He aggressively postured, showing zero fear of potential sweeps from below. Such signature moves became the emperor's lethal arsenal on his path to the pinnacles of greatness. The lead hand. Let's move on to the main icon of the boxing arsenal, the jab, the straight punch with the lead hand. For classic strikers like Muhammad Ali, this was the primary tool for fighting. But Fedor Emelianenko had his own unique vision. In MMA, the distances are significantly larger than in a boxing ring. It's reckless to attack with just the jab, you'll easily be met with a painful kick. So Fedor found a brilliant solution. Instead of endless jabbing, he pestered his opponents. His lead hand rhythmically feinted towards their head, then dropped to the body, sending false attack signals. The foe was forced to react, losing focus. Meanwhile, Emelianenko was already weaving his virtuosic combination. Recall his fight against Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira and that mesmerizing multi-level pestering. Or his bout with Satoshi Ishii, their Fedor hypnotized his victim with feints from the left before landing the fight-ending straight right. Of course, if the situation allowed, the emperor could throw a textbook jab. But he preferred to conserve energy, wary of deadly low kicks. However, Fedor's true ace in the hole was his murderous lead hook. Formed in the canons of the Soviet boxing school, it didn't loop wildly but struck in a sharp, arcing path, piercing the target. Watch the epic Tim Sylvia fight, where Emelianenko landed these hooks in the pocket. Or recall the stunning combination on Kazuyuki Fujita, a powerful step-in low kick and a jaw-rattling body shot. Fedor virtuosically blended striking and grappling in flawless sequences. Multidimensional, crafty, lethally precise, such were the hand strikes of the last emperor of MMA. It was they that swept all opposition from his path to glory. The right hand. Let's turn to the last emperor's main secret weapon, his legendary straight right hand. This lethal missile put dozens of victims on the canvas, including fighters like Brett Rogers, Pedro Rizzo, and Satoshi Ishii. But Fedor had his own trademark style of throwing this punch, a unique technique not found in classical boxing. In the ring, classical boxers would only throw the straight right after establishing distance with the jab. the left hand posted on the target, followed by the devastating right lunge. Fedor rarely used 1-2 combinations, too risky in MMA. Instead, he perfected the art of throwing a single, almost unhitched straight right. Emelianenko simply waited for the perfect moment and struck, relying on lightning reflexes and preternatural hand speed. Recall his fight with Nogueira. Fedor seemingly uncorks a crushing right hand from nowhere. Or the knockouts of Rogers, Rizzo, Ishii. In each case, the punch was single but lethally accurate and snappy. From a classical boxing perspective, this is heresy, a rookie mistake. Catch these hands. Coaches would scold such hapless strikers. But the last emperor transcended all canons. The reason for the incredible effectiveness of his single straight was Fedor's own blinding hand speed that most opponents couldn't match. Plus, the lack of solid boxing fundamentals in most of his foes. They could neither react properly nor fire back intelligently against Emelianenko's genius improvisation. And he, never once doubting, launched his trademark strike honed to automaticity, repeatedly crushing victims. And at times, he even added bolder feints to this trick. Right before impact, he'd barely perceptibly twitch the lead hand, distracting attention. All while seizing the moment for his howitzer shot. Daring, lethally effective improvisation from the last emperor. Otherwise, Fedor's right-hand arsenal was sparse, the occasional scorching uppercut and a couple of crude hooks in the follow-up flurries. But did he need more? This was enough to knock the spirit out of MMA opponents with one signature move. Attack progression. However, behind all the magnificence of Fedor's striking technique lay one important flaw. His methods of progressing attacks were often overly bold, almost reckless. In his younger years, when Emelianenko's hand speed was truly preternatural, he could afford such luxury. Pinning his opponent to the fence or ropes, the last emperor would unleash furious yet looping bombardments. Recall that episode against Brett Rogers. Fedor swarmed him against the cage with a hailstorm of punches, violating every conceivable boxing canon. One hand windmilled while the other hung perilously low, a perfect counterpunching target. Yet the shell-shocked Rogers failed to get a single word in edgewise. But what if he tried? Fedor could have paid dearly for such renegade behavior. And that's precisely what happened against Kazuyuki Fujita. The samurai from the land of the rising sun did not flinch, cracking the emperor's hubris with a stinging counter uppercut. Fedor barely stayed upright that night. And how many other such episodes were there? Recall his meeting with Maldonado. The already veteran Emelianenko was decked by a couple of deadly counter shots because he again left himself wide open while progressing his attack. Reckless loss of control, open targets, a skyward chin, any of it could have cost the last emperor his career and life. Only phenomenal reflexes and opponent mistakes allowed him to walk that tightrope unscathed. But in the heavy-gloved realm of MMA, where strikes carry full concussive force, such liberties are unacceptable. Fedor took far too long to fully absorb this crucial lesson, paying a heavy price. Major defensive flaws and grappling. But behind all the strengths of the last emperor's unique style lurked substantial flaws that sometimes put his career at risk. Look at his open stance, hands down, flared out to the sides. Fedor seemed to purposely expose his centerline for opponents' concussive straight shots. No barrage of fists guarding his face, just a bare torso as a target. Recall the start of his fight with Mirko Krokop. Emelianenko ate a stiff punch, but somehow managed to take the exchanging Croatian dock worker down to the canvas. He might not have been so lucky next time. Or the episode with Brett Rogers. Fedor got cracked with a jab, but what if it had been a heavy straight instead? Such lapses would have ended most fighters' careers. Although Fedor's striking was only partially refined, his grappling base was unmatched. The last emperor's signature locks and holds doomed dozens of victims. Key lock, rear naked choke, Kimura shoulder lock, an entire arsenal of fight-ending maneuvers. With them, Emelianenko scored 7 of his 15 possible wins. Whether against the burly Korean Choi Hong-man or another towering giant. Fedor virtuosically blended striking and grappling. Looping strikes pinned foes to the fence, then he'd rapidly close distance. Clinches, trips followed, and the hapless victim writhed on the canvas trapped in agony. In this lethal unity of speed, power, and improvisation lay the wellsprings of Emelianenko's greatness. For while he sometimes fell short in the striking realm against well-rounded fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov, on the ground the Emperor was unmatched. His arsenal, like his very fighting philosophy, prized effectiveness above all else at any cost. Misses, blunders, it didn't matter, as long as his hand was ultimately raised in victory. Fedor Emelianenko's training regimen. But what lay behind the last emperor's phenomenal power and endurance? The answer is simple: his legendary training system, unparalleled in MMA. Depending on the stage of fight preparation, Fedor could push himself through 1 to 2, up to 3 to 4, absolutely grueling training sessions per day. Only twice a week did he rest, going for a walk or visiting the banya to recover. But what exactly were these suicidal routines? Accounts from Emelianenko's former sparring partners paint a truly diabolical picture. Here, for example, is Fedor's daily schedule while building a base for his 2005 fight against Mirko Cro Cop: mornings 5-kilometer mountain run with a warm-up and striking work. Afternoons 10-kilometer rug march with functional training and an hour of grappling hell. Evenings final 5-kilometer grind with technical striking drills. But the Emperor's devilish plan was not limited to conditioning. As his partner Kirill Sidelnikov recounted, the maximum goal in sparring was to knock Fedor out. Or you'd get flexed yourself. Few could withstand such relentless pressure. And that was just a small part of the inhuman workload. The core consisted of marathon running cycles with sprints up to 12 to 15 kilometers per day in camp, 20 kilometers at peak fitness. Plus, endless ground battles until complete physical exhaustion. Such was the bloody price for the title of Last Emperor. It was in these hellish routines that his unbreakable will, muscular steel, and physical immortality were forged. Only the chosen few were worthy to share this monumental cross with Fedor. Strength training. Look at these photos of the young Emelianenko brothers posing in front of an old Soviet weight rack. Alexander is holding a protein shake, a symbol of new times. But Fedor already displays the chiseled physique of a young warrior, the fruits of grueling iron workouts. In those years, the future emperor tirelessly trained with barbells. Shoulders, back, legs, he methodically built up every muscle, taking his bench press max to an incredible 180 kilograms. Many bodybuilders would envy such monstrous strength. But then Fedor realized the truth: the barbell would not give him the endurance a fighter needs. What matters is not an instantaneous burst of power, but the ability to withstand endless rounds of hand-to-hand combat. So Emelianenko abandoned weights in favor of good old bodyweight exercises. Pull-up bars, parallel bars, push-ups, Fedor repped out to exhaustion, each time overcoming his own 100-plus kilogram frame. He tirelessly worked with tires, jump ropes, sledgehammers, pushed medicine balls. Constant circuit training in the modern CrossFit style, cycling through different movements. No equipment, just his own body as a weapon. It was this Spartan approach that made Fedor Emelianenko the unbeatable emperor. Nutrition. Many wonder, what allowed Fedor Emelianenko to maintain his tremendous strength and endurance over so many years? The answer lies in his fighter's diet. Look, there is nothing unhealthy in the Last Emperor's menu: no fast food, sweets, or soda. Except perhaps a small indulgence on major holidays. A typical fighter's day began with a hearty breakfast, an omelet made from several eggs, a source of animal protein. During Orthodox fasts, oatmeal cookies and a handful of nuts would substitute. For lunch, Emelianenko had no strict limitations. A first course, a second, a third with meat or fish if it was a fasting period. Fedor never followed fad diets, preferring the balanced fare of traditional Russian cuisine. In his youth, he did without any supplements or athletic nutrition. Only during the peak of tournament preparation would he allow himself protein shakes to replenish energy. But with age, once the scale ticked past 40, Emelianenko had to reevaluate his approach. At 23 to 27 years old, you hardly feel fatigued, you recover quickly, Fedor said. But later, extra efforts are required. Conclusion. To list all the secrets behind Fedor Emelianenko's mastery is a thankless task. For only the emperor himself knows all the intricacies that allowed him to remain the scourge of heavyweights for decades. But even those crumbs of truth visible on the surface allow us to realize, before us stands a warrior truly universal and unique. Perfected in striking and grappling arts, he combined the best qualities of a fighter. Tremendous physical strength shattered opponents' defenses. Impeccable endurance enabled Fedor to battle at the outermost limits of human capability. And a fighter's mind coupled with a finishing arsenal from sambo, judo, and other martial arts transformed every bout into a ferocious thriller. Watch how Emelianenko exhausted and finished Mirko Krokop, the K1 veteran and one of the world's premier strikers. Or how the relentless Fedor decimated masters of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Even such monsters as Semi Schilt, Mark Coleman, and Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira could not withstand this unbridled onslaught. An entire armada of hitherto unbeaten fighters fell prostrate before the emperor's genius. And that is precisely why Fedor Emelianenko rightfully bears the title of the last emperor of MMA. His flawless career, brilliant technique, and boundless diligence made him a truly immortal legend of mixed martial arts. Much can be said about the nuances of Fedor's style. But above all, let us pay tribute to the unmatched master in the modern history of combat arts.
Thank you for watching, friend. Subscribe to us. Don't forget to hit the bell to not miss the next videos.